Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Travel Rolly podcast. Today we have Mr. Andy Grow. We really appreciate you guys tuning in, and I hope you guys enjoy.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Travel Royally podcast. Right now, we're excited to have as our guest Andy Grow. Andy, thank you for joining us today. Andy is a retired U.S. Coast Guard chief. So, Andy, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
He was in the Coast Guard for more than 25 years, and now he serves as an assistant superintendent at a local country club near Grand Rapids. Andy was raised on a golf course where his father was the superintendent for 14 seasons, and his first job was on a golf course as well in northern Michigan. And he's worked on and off on golf courses throughout his career in the Coast Guard. And he also spent 2 years in the golf course construction business on a course near Ann Arbor. Right now, he also volunteers with the First Tee of Michigan. So thank you for your work there. That's important work. He's also in the Society of Hickory Golfers, as not only a member, but as a board member as well. He's a member of the Golf Heritage Society, and he's an ambassador there. He's a self-appointed, as he calls himself, golf historian. He's a lover of all things to do with golf in Scotland. He loves the history. He loves the links. He loves all the traditions that come with Scottish golf. And again, Andy, we're thrilled to have you. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for that phenomenal intro, Jeff. And you're welcome. It's great to be here. I love, like we were just talking about 5 minutes ago, I love talking about this stuff. And I love doing it. I love playing it, but it's talking about it and sharing those experiences that I have with people that maybe will never get over there, maybe don't have the interest in the history or whatever. And anybody who wants to lend me an ear, I'll talk it off. So,
well, we have Michael McAllen at Nairn to thank for connecting us directly.
We do.
And I've heard another podcast that you were on, but we want to talk about some different things today as well. But so thanks to Michael for that connection. And I know how you came to golf. So let's kind of dive into how you got to where you are today. So we spoke last week or the week before, and obviously you're very passionate about links golf. How did that come about? Because based on our conversation, you've only been over once.
Sure. Actually, I have been over twice.
Okay.
I'll drill that into death later on. But my first trip was a year ago, and then I went back again this May.
Got it.
So 6 months ago, whatever it was, not quite 6 months ago. But so you got to go back in time, if you will, to the course that my dad used to manage. He was literally the caretaker superintendent golf pro at a course up on Mackinac Island in Michigan, northern Michigan, called Wawashkamo Golf Club. It was built in 1898 by Alex Smith of Carnoustie, 1906 and 1910 U.S. Open champion. It's a links. I hate the word links style, especially now. But it's there. Originally, there were very few trees. There have been some more, some planted and whatnot. But it was designed by a Scotsman on his very first trip over to the States. So it's definitely got a links feel. Technically, it's on an island. It's surrounded by water, but there's no sand. That island is limestone. So there's about 2 feet of dirt on top of limestone. So there's no. It's not a sandy soil at all. But there's a lot of fescue and a lot of high heather. So, anyways, sorry, I told you, I already warned you. I'm going to start doing that. But so that was the course that my dad discovered back in the 70s. My mom and him used to go up there to vacation. It's a huge tourist destination for people that don't know. And he was a school teacher. Actually, both my parents are school teachers. And he went up there one weekend and decided that he wanted to see if they needed some help because it was old and run down. And I don't know if you know the Musselburgh Old Links story about how they were old and run down.
Yeah.
There's a connection that will probably come up in this conversation between the two courses now. But Dad fell in love with it. He told me he was on the second fairway. He just told me this earlier this year. He was on the second fairway playing, and he got a chill down his spine, and something kind of like a field of dreams type of moment for him.
Yeah.
And he was like, I need to, this place is too special to just let it go by the wayside. And it was, it wasn't a very well kept up at all. So anyhow, the links style of golf, playing the low ball, running it. We didn't water fairways, roughs, anything. We watered the tees and we watered the greens. And we used to do that with literally a garden hose and a rotating sprinkler. Back up until, I don't remember what year it was, they finally got a little bit of irrigation around the greens, some automated type stuff. So it was very linksy and without being links. And the fact that a Scotsman designed it always intrigued me. So that was kind of the first taste of it that I got. Then a couple of years, over 2 seasons, Dad went over the course, sent him over to Scotland actually twice. And this is back in the 80s, just for some time perspective, 1980s. So Dad went over twice, and he just fell in love with it. And back then it was, you could literally walk to Royal Dornoch or St. Andrews and just walk up and you're out on the course in 5 minutes. Nothing like it is now. He played the old course. He played Royal Dornoch. He played Nairn. He played actually, I don't know if he played Nairn. He played Tane. Fell in love with Tane. He ended up playing at least 36 holes there in one afternoon. He just had such a great time. He played Cruden Bay. He was at Cullen, Carnoustie, Musselburgh. He played a couple of the courses over, but the links thing kind of was, all this is because of my dad, is really essentially where all my golf interest starts from. And it wasn't until last year actually that, I have a huge soapbox that's sitting right here that I need
but I have to say this, Andy, you're not 20 years old.
No, I'm not.
You've got gray hair like I do.
I'm
What took you so long to get over there? That's the question.
Well, okay, so I'm 52 now, and what happened is during that time period, from my first job at 12, working on a golf course, and then working for Dad for a few seasons, and kind of living on the course on and off, because we'd go back and forth. Mom and Dad were still married, but he lived up on the island, and Mom was in Traverse City during the summer times. And then when I joined the Coast Guard, the golf stuff kind of came to a screeching halt for a while. I went to Kodiak, Alaska. Actually, was my first duty station. I ended up doing 17 years up in Alaska. So during that time, I played golf up in Alaska. I played at Anchorage. I played on Kodiak Island at Bear Valley Golf Club, Bear Valley Golf Course. So all this stuff is happening, but these are all just random things. And I actually got out of the Coast Guard for 2 or 3 years. I guess it was about 3 years. And during that time, that was when I did 2 years at a golf course, doing golf course construction back here in Michigan, down near Ann Arbor, where we lived. And so I did a couple of other really part-time gigs during that time period, during my 20 plus years in the Coast Guard, 25 years in the Coast Guard, but nothing really solid. I retired in 2016 and did a few other things, nothing related to golf other than driving range here and there. And I really was not back into the game at all. 2021, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 2 years ago. That doesn't seem right. I guess 3 seasons ago. I got COVID really bad, and I happened to have it right at the time that the Masters was on. And prior to that, though, the year or so prior to that, so my dad had collected hickory clubs over the years. He was probably he was maybe the first golf course, if not one of the very first in the country, that you could rent golf clubs, rent hickory clubs back in like 1985. Wow. He was doing that. And it was as authentic as you could get, right? You go out and play an old 1898, the second or one of the oldest courses in Michigan, built in 1898 with hickory clubs that were 10 years newer than that, built in the 1900s. He had the reproduction gutta percha balls by Penfold over in England, because the Brown McIntyre company was not in existence at that point. And he was, I just lost my whole train.
Well, you were talking about how your dad was renting clubs, renting balls at a time when other people weren't.
Yes, thank you. God, I apologize to every listener if they're even sticking around at this point. But so he had a couple hundred hickory golf clubs, and I love history, not just golf history. I like world history. I like looking at the past. It helps me define and figure out maybe where we're going, or where I want to go, where I don't want to go. But it just interests me. History interests me. And I got that from my dad as well. He was big in the history of golf, and it just kind of, I have a huge bookshelf over here. That's not it. There's another one there, but and he's got a huge bookshelf of golf books. Well, he started passing some of this stuff on to me. He's still alive. He's still healthy. So it wasn't like hey, here you go. Here's your inheritance type of thing. But so I started ending up with all these hickory golf clubs. That brings us up to 2021, when I had COVID really bad. And I'm sitting there watching the Masters, and all of a sudden the light switch went on. And it was like, you got to get back into golf, man. And I've got at that point I had 50 or 60 of his hickories, and I'm like, just let's start swinging hickories again. I last did that in like 1987 or something up on the golf course. So that was kind of the switch. And that's actually when I started working at Egypt Valley, at the country club where I'm at now. I'm in my third season there, and I'm not yet the assistant. The guy that I'm replacing, he's been there for 3 years. He's moving on back up to the Upper Peninsula where he's from. So I'll be taking his position. So Jeff, if you're my boss, if you're listening to this, I'm not claiming that I'm an assistant yet. But
so you're not quite Carl Spackler.
Not well. I'm actually probably closer to him than I am anybody else. So. But yeah, so that was kind of it for me. And something, it wasn't the Masters per se, but it was just this trigger. And all of a sudden, when I do things, I don't just do it lightly. I dove right back in head first and started getting as many of my dad's clubs as he'd let me get. I'd go through them, set them up as play sets. We were selling some of his stuff. He had bins of golf heritage or golf historical, stuff, golf balls, and you name it. And he was feeding the beast, and inadvertently, or maybe it was intentional. I don't know. Yeah. And then that was kind of it. And I realized that I'm like, man, I got to get back into this. I got to stay in it. And it just became this explosion of stuff. And then I started reading more, and then I started trying my hand at writing. When I joined the Society of Hickory Golfers, Jim Davis, who's he's a retired, he's going to kill me if he hears this. He was a big writer, editor type, in Grand Rapids area here with papers and whatnot. And he started helping me with my writing and whatnot. And so the golf stuff just kept morphing into something different. And then I'm in 2 magazines. I'm in the cover of the Society of Hickory Golfers magazine after my first trip last year when I played at Prestwick, when I played the original 12. Jim liked one of the pictures I had because I dressed in period dress with my hickories, and I'm standing on the original first tee at Prestwick, ready to play the original 12 holes. And
what was the first course you played over there?
So actually, the first course was I got in. I had traveled for like 38 hours or something like that, and I just went around and played. How do you pronounce it? Strathtyrum there.
In St. Andrews.
At St. Andrews, yep.
Okay, so let me ask this.
Sure.
I want to stop you.
Yeah.
That's your first actual links golf experience.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, and so for those people that don't know, the Strathtyrum golf course is kind of one of the 7 courses at St. Andrews and it's one of the lesser known ones, but it's still a fine layout.
It was, and
right?
it was great for somebody that was just physically and everything exhausted. It was spectacular, and because it's a little bit of a shorter, it's an easier course, and
but what was your feeling? I mean, this is your first time playing.
so I was just overwhelmed just being in St. Andrews.
Yeah.
Okay. So that day that I arrived, I actually had coffee with Roger McStravick, who's a big historian over there. I met, he was great. I had been communicating with him before. He agreed to meet me, even though he was heading out of town later on that afternoon with his family. So we sat and talked, and I'd read some of his stuff and listened to him on some of the podcasts, and just a great guy. And that was my first exposure to the Scottish people. Even though he's not from Scotland, if I remember correctly, he's from Ireland, I think. Oh boy, you might want to delete that.
Yeah, I'm not sure where he's from, but he is an expert on St. Andrews.
He is. And so that very first day after I played at what's the proper pronunciation? Strathtyrum.
Right.
After I played there, I spent the rest of the day doing all the history stuff in St. Andrews. So I was overwhelmed. That course, excuse me, was spectacular. I mean, the town is still there. Everything is still right there. You're just now walking on those grounds of the old course or even the new course. So it was perfect though, because I was, like I said, I was tired, my body, but then you're all jazzed up because here you are in St. Andrews. So it was a fun course though, and it's absolutely, I mean, a lot of people don't know, like you just alluded to, that there's 7 St. Andrews Trust courses, and it's not just the old and the new. It's, I mean, you got what, Castle and
Jubilee.
Yep, and then the
Eden and the Balgove.
Yep, and Balgove. Yep, and I mean, you could spend a week in St. Andrews and never leave St. Andrews and golf every day on a different course.
Exactly.
Just that's cool. That in itself, and it's St. Andrews, people. I mean, the town reeks of golf history. You can't look at a building and, I mean, there's a tie with the history on almost every building that's there.
Right. I agree.
And like, you can walk into Old Tom's shop, his original shop, the workbench that the girl that was working there selling books, she was folding shirts on Old Tom's original workbench.
Yeah.
It's right under the front windows there. And then if you look at the floor, there's gouges in the floor, and nobody really knows. People are like, "Oh, that's from practice swings." No, it's not. If their clubs were doing that, but it's from them making clubs. And like, so I wondered. I asked her. I was like, "How many people come in here and ask you to look at the floor and take a picture of the floor?" And she's like, "Yeah, not that many." And I was surprised. A lot of people just come there to check the box, right? They just want to play the old.
Well, above that building, do you know that Old Tom's great granddaughter still lives there, and she owns that building? Right?
She does, yes.
Yeah.
And I actually ran into her at the cemetery and had a nice talk with her because I happened to be there visiting Old Tom and Young Tom and Ellen.
Was that the day she was up cleaning the?
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's where I heard you talk about that on the other podcast, the 1457. Yeah.
Yep. So, anyways, it's a great for anybody that even has the tiniest little interest in golf history. Just seeing that town, and I mean, you got the R&A behind you right now. A picture of the R&A and that whole row on Links, was it Links Place? Is all the clubhouses, of 6 or 7, 5 or 6 different clubs that play at St. Andrews on the Links Trust courses. And I mean, and every one of those, the corner building is where Ellen Robertson's shop used to be. the one that's right at the corner there. And
Yeah.
now it's an apartment. There's somebody living in there. And it's like,
Yeah.
it just doesn't, and it's like a 400-year-old building too, and that just blows me away. People like me are like,
well, when you played Strath Tyrone, so you're on the first tee, you hit the ball, and now you walk out and your ball is laying presumably in the fairway.
It was.
It's your first strike off of links turf, right? And your first steps on links turf, which is completely different for those people that haven't experienced it, isn't it?
It absolutely is. And it like, I struggle to put it into words because it is so different and it's so unique and it's so right, though. It's what it's supposed to be. Now, the soapbox is the one I'm going to try to stay off of, but I'm not a fan of American golf at all. When I was over there, I was over there for 2 weeks straight. This was my first trip. I was over there for 2 weeks straight, played 13 different courses, like 15 or 16 rounds total. And I saw a total of 5 power cards. 5. That's it. My dad taught me a long time ago, the only reason you better be in a power card is because you don't have your legs working. There better be a reason like that. And golf is meant to be walked, and you discover that over there. Now, the soapbox, I'm going to put it away for a minute because we're in a cycle over here where we build our courses so that you have to take a power cart, and we build them so that you can have a house on the course. And we're playing courses over there that are 150, 350 years old. They didn't have to worry about that stuff back then. So, but yeah, links golf, first swing on the first tee. And honestly, that course to me, it was my first true one. I can't ignore that. But I really honestly felt when I played Crail, that was the links moment for me. That I knew that I played, played Strath Tyrone, then I played the old course the next day. I got on the singles queue like we were talking about. But then the day after that, I played Crail and Anstruther, or Anster as the locals call it. And I don't want to glaze over the old course because that was phenomenal. That was, everybody's worried about the first tee. First tee, my shot was perfect, man. I'm not a long hitter, and especially with hickories and stuff, but I'm if you can't see me, relatively, I'm doing the air quotes, relatively down the middle with my hickories. Not very far, but right down the middle. And there were 2 people watching us off the first tee. So all the nerves that everybody talks about, it was still there, but it wasn't what I thought. Completely opposite on the 18th tee when a busload of 30 tourists got off at the corner of Links Place, and I can't remember the name of the main road coming in and out of town, where I hit the worst tee shot in the history of golf, and just completely embarrassed myself after parring the road hole.
You parred the road hole with hickories.
I did, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now that is a feat.
That was not only a feat, but a surprise. Just barely made it over the barn, or over the railroad. What do they call it? Yeah, the railroad shed there. Played it further to the left because I had to give myself as much room as I could. And the great thing is my caddy, Frazier, he caught I almost birdied it. My putt from just off the forward edge of the green, to the front of the green, rolled about 10 inches past it, and then I knocked that in for a par. So that was, I didn't care about the rest of my score. I didn't keep score actually at all. I usually don't keep score. It's not relevant to me. The score, I'm quoted somewhere else in saying that the score that I keep is the enjoyment that I have after the game, after the walk. And
there's an important point there, Andy. If when people come off Egypt Valley as an example, right, they'll ask, if I played there for the first time, they'd say, "Would you shoot?"
Yep. Not once will anybody in Scotland ask you that.
they'll say, "How did you like the course?"
Yep. How was the course? They don't care the scores, and I think a lot of that indirectly, and they probably don't even realize it, throws back to the days. I mean, when golf started, par didn't exist. Nobody cared about par. Par didn't exist until actually relatively recently in golf history. So it was match play, most of what they played, which to me is, I hate stroke play. I think it's great for TV, and that was kind of why it was created, so that you could look at one board and see where people were numerically, but bring back more match play on the women's side, the men's side. I don't care. The pros, bring back more match play. That's where golf belongs.
Well, did you get to play Shishkin out on the Isle of Arran?
I did not. That is a next tripper.
Okay. Well, the reason I bring that up is that the number of holes, I'm assuming, is irrelevant to you as well. Whether it's 12 or 18 or 22, it doesn't matter.
9, 12, 18, you bring whatever, and I'll play it. And honestly, I would love to see more 12-hole golf courses. I think from a timing perspective, especially as slow as play seems to be going in that slower direction for 18. I mean, 4 or 5 hours for a round of golf. My God, we played Fort Trost and Rosemarkie this May, 2 hours and 40 minutes. We played 18 holes, and we didn't rush at all. Granted, the green's here and the tee's 15 yards over there, so it takes no time at all. But it shouldn't be an endeavor. Golf should not be an endeavor. It should be something you can enjoy. And so 12 holes, and then you have a night, if you do the layout right, get like Tom Doak to come in and start doing that sort of stuff, and do 12 and make it so that you can go out. If you need to do 18 because you think that's what real golf is, then you can, maybe your 6th hole is your the turn, if you will, and you can do your 12 and then go back out for the back 12 or something again.
Yeah.
But people need to get away from, well, it's only a 9-hole course, or it's only and that's the other soapbox that's sitting over here on the floor is just enjoy the game. It doesn't matter if the course is 8,000 yards or 5,000 yards. It doesn't matter if it's 9 holes, 18, 12, 22. I mean, playing the original 12 holes at Prestwick, the time of it, not if I can just concentrate, if I can take out the historical aspect, the magicalness, the insanity of the layout, and just think about how perfectly timed 12 holes of golf was. It was absolutely perfect. It was, you weren't exhausted, you didn't feel cheated at all. It's just from a playtime perspective, it's 12 holes is great, and I would love to see more courses that are 12 holes.
Well, and that was at a time when there was already a lot of holes that were 18. I mean, old Tom built Prestwick in the early 1850s.
Yep, 51.
And what a fantastic layout. That was the first course I ever played in Scotland.
Oh, really? Oh, man.
And I can tell you what was interesting. I'll never forget. We get to the first tee, it's raining and it's foggy. And I have no idea where the golf course is, right? I mean, it looks like the moon under cloud cover. And I've got my driver in my hand, and my caddy takes that out of my hand, and he puts a 7-iron in my hand. And I go, I don't even know where I'm hitting. And he points, into the fog this way, and off we went. But like you, I fell in love the moment I set foot on that property. Or actually, I'd probably fallen in love before I got there and just didn't realize it until you're standing there on that amazing property.
Yeah. And, from a historian, again, self-appointed, but from a historian's mindset, the research that I put into which courses I was going to play was almost as magic as actually playing those courses. And I love, that's what I love about, I've helped a couple of people kind of come up with some ideas of courses they should play over there, because everybody wants to check the box of the big ones, right? The Dornicks, the Old Course, the Carnousties, and they're phenomenal. I played I played Carnoustie, but as the number of, and this is where Mike kind of tied us together and kind of introduced me to you or us together is that those smaller courses that I would say 95% of Americans will never even utter the words, let alone be able to tell you what they are or where they're at. Those are the courses that make Scotland Scotland.
Yeah.
And that's where you find the true links golf experiences at. Not that you don't get the same stuff at the Old or at Carnoustie or Dornoch or any of the others, but when you're standing at Dunbar, for example, over on the eastern side of East Lothian there, and a member walks up to you and just out of the blue asks you if you'd like to play along with him and his guest that he's got there. This is what happened with me. First tee at I'm thinking Kilspindie. First tee on Kilspindie, a little par 3. And I'm just standing there and waiting and for the guys to clear the green. And this gentleman walks up and asked me if I was interested in playing with him. And my dad told me, he's like, if anybody asks to play, just say yes. And I can tell you that having hickories makes playing with hickories over there, they look at you completely differently than they look at every other American that comes through there.
Yeah. And
the fact that you're on their course playing with hickories, all my hickories that I brought over there were made in Scotland. And a couple of the rounds I actually dressed in, like I said, in period, attire, either with the +4s or the wool, like I wore at Prestwick with the wool jacket and the wool pants, and really restricts your swing if you're wondering. But those are the experiences. Anstruther was magical. Anstruther was after Crail. I did 18 at Crail in the morning, and then the afternoon I went up to Anstruther. Or excuse me, down, I guess, to Anstruther. And standing on the first tee, there were two gentlemen coming off the ninth green, which is right next to the tee there. And Anstruther's just a 9-holer, just a 9-hole course. Those two guys were both caddies from St. Andrews. They'd been doing it for 35 or 40 years. And they asked me, I actually was standing there drinking an iron brew. And they said,
you are Scottish if you're drinking iron brew.
Yeah, I love that stuff. I get it through Amazon now. And they recognized that, and they saw my hickories, and they said, hey, if you'd like to play along. And man, I tell you what, those 9 holes, the stories I got from them was incredible. And then was it number 5, the Rockies?
Yeah,
one of the toughest par 3s in the UK. I didn't play it. They told me, they're like, just hit up on number 4 fairway, which is coming at you, and then you'll be up above the green, and then just chip down onto the green. I did that, and I just shot a 4 on that hole. And they said a 4 is basically a par for that par 3. So but the sun was setting, and I wasn't intending to play another 9. But as the sun started to go, the shadows got longer. The sunset just got more and more intense. And I'm like, oh, I'm playing 9 more, man. And so I walked 9. I was the only person out there as the sun's going down. I'm playing, what do they call their is it 5, 6, 7? They call it their, oh my gosh, amen corner is what they call it. And it's just these 3 little par 3s right next to each other, right on the water, right on the sea. Just incredible, and they're just crazy shots. And I'm out there just watching the sunset and the shadows and stuff, and I walked down, and I just had an amazing experience there. And it was because of meeting those guys. And then I hung out in the clubhouse afterwards, and the clubhouses over there are nothing like the clubhouses what we think of here. It was a little add-on to another building, basically. But they had all their trophies and stuff in there, and they had a bar, of course. So I sat and talked to the bartender and the wait staff, because they were closing, and the wait staff sat and talked to me for an hour and a half afterwards. And and it was the people. This is one thing I haven't really said a whole lot yet, but the people that I met over there, the locals, the Scots, hands down made both of my trips into purely unforgettable experiences that live continuously in my mind forever.
Yeah.
And like Mike, we ran into him. We didn't play Nairn, and I say we, Christian Williams and I traveled in May together over there, and we didn't have time to play Nairn. It was actually our last day. We were flying out that evening.
Did you get to see their historical area?
That's why we went there.
Yeah.
And Mike took us upstairs, got a full tour, had a wee dram of scotch, and it was incredible. But it was all because of Mike, right? And I know that they do that for anybody, basically, if you ask.
Yeah.
What an experience. We just sat there with him for as long as we could before he had to get back to actually to work.
Yeah.
And it's just incredible. I mean, you can't grasp the true history and the magnitude of the stuff you're standing in if you never get to stand in it. It's always looking at a picture on the internet, or you're hearing a podcast, a story or something. That's why I encourage people to just go. I was 52, 51 when I took my first trip. I wish I would have done it now. I wish I would have done it 25 years ago and gone every year since then, because, Prestwick, for example, part of that deal, they had a 2-week period where they recreated the original 12 holes back in October. And it was for the 150th Open celebration that St. Andrews was holding, because that's where the Open was. But it had been 160 years prior to that when the first Open was held. Excuse me. They did over 2 years. They took 2 years to recreate the original 12 holes and greens and everything. And of course, some of the holes are still original. Number 2, which I think the Alps hole, which is 17 on the modern.
Right.
That was the original number 2. That's the oldest continuously played in existence championship golf hole ever anywhere in the world. But they did this great thing where you came in, you played 12 holes in the morning. Then you had a full members lunch at the long table. And that was fun, and also very intimidating, because you're sitting next to a member, and he's in his proper jacket and his member's jacket, but just the friendliest people in the world. And then after that lunch, you got to go upstairs, and you didn't just get to see the copies of the scorecards and the documents, and you went into the true archives, the fireproof room, where they pulled them out and put them in front of you. And there's the original scorecard from old Tom, young Tom. There's the original scorecard from the first Open that Willie Park won. The original scorecard. Really didn't write on it, but somebody was keeping score for him. Same thing with young Tommy when he scored a 3 on the first hole, which was a 550 plus yards, 578 for some reason. That seems.
And he did that with Hickory and he was probably using a gutty at that point, right?
Yeah.
I doubt he was using a feathery. It was in the 1850s.
Yeah,
60s.
He would have been right in between there. But to do it with a feathery, to do it with any club and any ball is crazy, because one of the guys that was playing with us, he was playing with modern clubs. And it was like a 7, I think, is what he scored, and I got a 8 or a 9. Again, I didn't keep score, but I remember my scores from there. But just to be able to see that stuff and have it, I'm taking a picture of the original belt design for the belt. They have the coolest thing, though. And I know I'm doing this rabbit hole deal, but the coolest thing was their minutes from their meeting in the
Red Lion.
The following year. No, this was after they had already held the Open.
Okay.
First year, which actually wasn't. You can argue that it wasn't truly an Open because it was invite only, but where the documents are the minutes of the Prestwick Golf Club meeting say that's where they say that, until otherwise determined, and I'm massacring this, I'm not even trying to quote it, not even trying to paraphrase it. Basically the verbiage says that this shall now be open to all. This tournament should be, and that is the first definition that anybody knows in writing of the Open Championship. And it's right. I mean, I'm holding the book that's written in, and from 1850 or 60 or whatever, 61, and it was like, man, this stuff just doesn't happen,
Yeah.
But it was, and it was just incredible.
Well, Andy, you've got a great passion for links golf now.
I
as
can't
newfound as that might be, but let me ask this: you've been twice now.
Yep.
Talk about the differences between the first trip and the second trip, because the first trip you went alone, correct?
I did.
The
so
second
the first
trip you went with Christian Williams.
Yep. So the first trip, I went alone. I did not take a rental car. I did everything public transportation. The bus system over there is phenomenal. The rail system is phenomenal. Of course, they've got Ubers and taxis and that sort of thing. So I traveled all over. Anywhere I was in, like I said, I went up to St. Andrews first, up to Fife for 5 nights. And then over to East Lothian, and then a 2-day trip over to Prestwick to play the Ed event, then back to East Lothian, all flying in and out of Edinburgh. And that one was strictly solo. I just did 18 each day, with the exception of the day I played at Crail and Anster, where I did 36. Compared to this spring in May, when I went over with Christian, we flew up into Inverness, and we did 4.5 days. We played 9 courses there, did a rental car. We set up all the travel, and everything was on us. The Airbnb, the lodging that we got, I think we had two or three different places on that one that we stayed.
There are people who do that for you.
I've heard of them. I'm here to undermine them, Jeff. But for me,
hey, seriously, I don't try to discourage people from planning their own trip, but for people that are going and don't have the time to devote or the energy that you did to dive in and understand what they're undertaking,
it's a lot.
It's a lot of work, and I think we've got some new clients. They signed up yesterday, as a matter of fact, and I'd given them an itinerary, and they said, we want to make these changes. This is how we want to spend the time. And so I got back to them. I said, look, I strongly recommend you don't do this, right? They wanted to move 3 nights in a row to 3 different B&Bs. Oh. And I said, look, just stay in the one, yep. Right? You can drive to these places. Do not bounce around. And then the final night, I said, stay near the airport. Yeah. You can take a taxi into the city, into Edinburgh. And they got back to me and said, we're going to do that. But we've got some surprises for them. We've got some tour guides lined up to take them through Edinburgh and through St. Andrews.
Yeah.
It's going to be a surprise for them. I mean, these aren't expensive add-ons, but it'll make a world of difference for people who don't have as much time as you did there, where they need to get more done in a shorter period of time, so to speak.
Yep. No, absolutely.
But, because the first 15. I'll take first 20 times I went there, I planned my own trips.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. So I fully understand that.
But like you said, though, it is a lot. And to just think, oh, I'm just gonna go play these 4 or 5 courses here, and I'm gonna bounce around. Like you just said, that's a tremendous waste of energy and a waste of time. You don't ever feel settled. And we, I stayed at 3 different places, both trips, and it was perfect.
Right. But Andy, what you talked about is so important. You said earlier, hey, you could go for a week in St. Andrews, never leave the town, and never play the same course twice in a week's period.
Yep.
Think about East Lothian, all those
Oh my
courses
God.
along there,
I didn't even
right?
touch that part yet,
Right.
you know?
Think about the Highlands. If
Yep.
you camped out in Inverness, there's so many courses within an hour's drive of there. Think about Prestwick, all the courses over there. Any of these, and the same could be said with Aberdeen,
Yep.
Aberdeenshire. When I talk people, I tell them, look, that you've got 5 regions of Scotland. You've got Ayr, the Lothians, Fife, Aberdeenshire, and the Highlands.
Yep.
And you could literally stay in any one of those places for a week
And
not play the same course twice. You can play
Yep.
every day and then some and not play the same course twice.
Yep. Yep. And, to your point, whether it's somebody that's planning a trip on their own, or they're using a group agency like you, or, a company like you guys, if anybody asks me for any suggestion, it's you're gonna think you can bite off way more than you can actually chew. It doesn't come out right. You're gonna bite off more than you chew, more than you can chew, because you look at a map and you're like, oh man, it's only like 3 hours across to Prestwick, and it's like, I can do that in a day. Well, that's Google's version of 3 hours. Or if you try to go up to like Durness up in is that the northwest? That's the one up in
Yes.
That's all single lane road, and Google
Did you
Maps.
go to Durness?
We did not. We were so close to.
You have to.
I know I do. And
I'll tell you what, it looks like Hawaii.
Really?
I'm not exaggerating, because when you're up on the hills, looking down at the beach, the water is aqua, the beaches are white. And I played it on a sunny day when it was probably 75. I'm like, if I took pictures here, people would guess I'm in Hawaii.
That's great.
It's that beautiful.
I
know it gets windy there and it gets cold there, but so let me ask, of all these places, what course is your favorite? And I know that's
Jim.
I know.
I can tell you, I could go through my list of every course and tell you that it's a favorite for a different reason than the other 25 that I played. So I have, I kind of alluded earlier to that tie with Musselburgh Old Course.
Right.
Going back to that just real quick to give you, so listeners can understand why. My dad discovered back in I guess it was 85, 86, there was an article in the old PGA magazine, and I can't remember the name of the magazine. I actually have it in a bin over here, the original one that he read, but they wrote an article on Musselburgh and how it was, it's literally inside a race course, a horse racing track.
Right.
And the place was run down. Nobody cared about it. Nobody knew about it. Nobody was playing it except for the locals. It was becoming a horse track, quite literally. It was one. And the story was very similar with Wawashkamo, with his golf, not his, but with the course that he was working on, oldest course in Michigan, had a deep history with Scotland and whatnot because of Alex Smith. So Dad reached out to Musselburgh, but this was again back in the 80s when you had to write everything and mail it, wait a month for a reply. So he reached out to the secretary over there and started going back and forth, formed a little sister club relationship, which was pretty cool. Created a satellite competition where they actually have the cup is over at Musselburgh. They made a trophy. I can't remember what they call the competition, but it kind of fizzled out after a couple of years. But Dad, for 1 week, went over there and worked on Musselburgh. The following season, one of their greenkeepers came over and lived with us for the whole season and worked at Wawashkamo. So Musselburgh was always kind of this cool place for me. And not to mention the history of it. There's a road that used to be called Lynx Place. It's called, what's it called? Anyways, it's where the clubhouse is at, the Musselburgh, of course, club. But the corner of that street is where the McEwens used to live. McEwens of the famed club making history. The Honorable Company of Edinburgh Golfers, their clubhouse is 2 doors down, 2 buildings down from where Musselburgh's clubhouse is right now. And it's ironic because now the Honorable Company's old clubhouse is a daycare center. Right next to that is like let's see, I'm drawing a blank here. Royal, I can't embarrass myself right here. So I'm a member. I'm an overseas member at Musselburgh Old.
Yeah.
I have been. I love their history. I love that. Depending on who you ask, they are the oldest course in the world. They're the cradle of golf. You can be the home of golf, but you have to start somewhere first in the cradle. So, but the clubhouse there, oh man, I'm dying right now. It's Royal Burgess, I think, Royal Burgess Golf Society.
That's it. Yep.
That's theirs. And then the Brentsfield Golf Links, their clubhouse is now like almost like a pub type place. But it's really cool because you walk past the McEwen house, there's a cross, golf clubs crossed up above the door. And if you look at the sidewalk, there's golf clubs etched into the sidewalk too, because from 1880, whatever.
Well, the other thing I like there too is Mrs. Foreman's.
That was my next step. So
right.
Unfortunately now, closed to the public. It's a private residence and whatnot. And can you imagine living there? Oh my God. Wow. But yeah, to stand there and it was the third hole. Now it's the fourth hole. To stand there and have that experience, stand on the tee, you still have to hit over the racetrack. Or if you're
railing
unlucky, you have to hit into the racetrack and then you're out of bounds. But then your next shot, your approach is up to the green, and there's Mrs. Foreman's right behind it. The old gate that says the cradle of golf right next to that.
Yeah.
The bunker where the local Musselburgh folk started kicking old Tom's ball around when him and Willie Park were having a match. And old Tom just said, "Screw it, I'm done," and went to Mrs.
Foreman's. Yeah.
All that stuff just happened, but happened right there. And you're standing on the grounds where it all happened. And the whole Park family, I've got 2 play sets of Willie Park Senior and Junior clubs. They're my family. Everybody knows the Morris family in St. Andrews, but I'm like the underdog guy, right? I like Musselburgh, and I like the Park family.
You've been drinking too much of Malcolm Duck's Kool-Aid.
Well, that's the problem. If you heard me on the 1457, because you got Dave Kerr, who thinks that Fife and St. Andrews is the peak of it.
Exactly.
My comment was actually kind of pre-planned. I knew they were going to go in that direction at some point. And Dave said, "So you started in Fife because clearly it's the greatest part of Scotland." And I said, "Well, Fife was okay, and the guys just ripped they had a great laugh at that. But yeah, that little friendly competition there between St. Andrews, and obviously St. Andrews has the marketing firm and the marketing bull behind it, and Musselburgh still doesn't. And part of me thinks that that's awesome.
Well, let me correct me if I'm wrong. I may not have this right, but when young Tom's wife went into labor, were they playing a match at Old Musselburgh, or were they playing at North Berwick?
They're at North Berwick, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. They're at North Berwick because it was right on the water where the ferry could run them back across to St. Andrews there. So.
Well, the history of Old Musselburgh is phenomenal. To play it with hickories, obviously you've done it. I've played some of the holes with hickories. It's fantastic. And what's interesting, Andy, when I asked that question, what's your favorite?
We still haven't touched that yet.
I asked that of everybody, and I asked, and to be truthful, I don't even know why, because I feel like you do. Any day on the golf course is a great day. And for me to try to say what's better, Cullen or Fortrose and Rosemarkie, is it Old Musselburgh or Dunbar? Is it Gullen or North Berwick? It's like, it's irrelevant.
It's
how much fun did I have?
Yep.
And like for you love Old Musselburgh. For me, it's not my cup of tea.
Right.
I prefer Dunbar as an example. If I was going to live in that area, I would want to play Dunbar every day. But
But here's the thing: is I also agree with you on that because I fell in love with Dunbar. Dunbar was just as true classic links as you can get, other than the first three that are inside the fence, inside the wall. You step out and all of a sudden it's an out and back right on the coast. And it's like, my God, this is it. And to interrupt you for a moment, it was other places though, like Cove Sea Links, Hopeman. When Christian and I went in May, we played there. Duff House Royal, again, not a links course at Duff House. And same thing with Strathpeffer Spa, which was like an alpine golf course. I mean, you're in the Highlands, and it was incredible. And I don't want to. I think those are the only two. Those are the only two non-links courses I've played over in Scotland.
I've been there 30 times and never played a non-links course. I won't do it, but I will say you missed the two gems of the Murray Coast. You missed Murray Old, Murray New, and
I know.
And I'm going to call our secretary and make sure that you're banned from ever coming back. I mean, for you to miss us is like going to, Leith and not playing Old Musselboro. You got to. Well, how do you not play it?
And we had that one was strictly the way that trip ended in May. Is that we actually had I don't remember the day. I think we flew back home on Sunday, and we both left at some super early flight. So we stayed at a hotel at the airport hotel in Inverness there, and that was the day. Let's say it was Saturday. We'll just call it Saturday. It doesn't really matter. That's the day we ended up going to visit Mike at Nairn. We went to a couple of distilleries, went to the battleground that's up in that area.
Culloden.
Yes. Yep. But the day before that, or 2 days before that, Christian runs, he hosts a YouTube channel called The Hickory Hacker. And he's got quite a few followers, and one of them was a member at Moray Old. And he actually gave us an invitation, offered to host us there. But it was on the morning that we were going to be leaving to go to the airport. Christian had to get his clubs sorted. He had a problem shipping them over, he had a problem with the arrangements to get them shipped back. We had decided Hopeman was our last round of golf on the May trip. And we were at the 18th. We just got blown away by number 12 there. If you've never been to Hopeman,
I played there.
God, oh my God, that hole was just like, wow. It was just incredible.
It's Paul Lowry's favorite par 3.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah. Yep. And I agree with him.
With the course reminds me of a course down in Wales called Pyle and Kenfig, where the front nine seems to be fairly pedestrian in a former, pasture meadow.
Yeah.
But the back nine is spectacular.
Yep.
And, 100%. Both Pyle and Kenfig and at Hopeman. And it's a wonderful day, a wonderful walk.
It was.
Amazing clubhouse. I mean, I think that's the core. I think they've either got a little statue or a monument to a dog that used to fetch golf balls around there.
I think that's. I think you're right. I think that's the one.
That's at Hopeman. I'm positive. And I think they, like you were saying earlier, they just do things that we would never do over here.
Yeah.
Like pay tribute to a passed along dog, right? That used to
collect golf balls. Here in the States, man, if we had somebody walking through the country club with a dog, we'd be like, excuse me, you need to leave immediately. But when I played Musselboro the first time, I think I played at least 3 rounds, if not 4 there at Musselboro Old. The second day, I guess it was, that I went back to play, it was so foggy that they wouldn't let you go off you couldn't get out yet. And it wasn't because we were going to lose our golf ball or anything. It's because you couldn't see the people walking their dogs on the course. And they're out there, and the starter knows they're out there. And he's like, we got to let it blow out or lift. And
were you at St. Andrews on a Sunday?
I was not. I left.
You have to see that. It's like an open park.
I know it looks crazy. I left Saturday morning. I left that Saturday, which was the only day it actually rained. And I wasn't golfing that day. That was a transfer day for me. So, but Jeff, I wanted to just go through all the courses that I played, just not with stuff about them, but Stratherum, the old course, Krell Balcony, Anster, Ely, Carnoustie, Musselboro Old a bunch of times, Gullen 3. I played the Glen, which is North Berwick's little redheaded step
East
brother,
course.
the East course. And my God, I don't know how more people don't freak out about that one. I get North Berwick, right? I haven't played North Berwick. I couldn't get on that year when I came back. They were booked up a year in advance, unless it was a tour operator type thing. And then I guess in October, they were booked up for this year, all the way through the year.
Yeah.
I played Dunbar. I played the original 12 at Prestwick, and I played Kilspindie. I played Port Mahomet.
I haven't played that, but I've heard great things about it.
So much fun. That was our very first round in this May trip. And we literally were off the plane 3 hours, and we were playing. We played with featheries. I've got some reproduction long nose play clubs, long nose clubs made by Kelly Lendwood up in Canada, and we play with some reproduction feathery golf balls that Denny and Kathy Lane of Hickory Lane Featheries make. There's their plugs.
Hey, we'll take it. Yeah.
But Christian and I played with 2 clubs. I played with a long nose and a putter. I think he had a long nose and a long spoon and a putter. And that was it. And it was the purest form of golf enjoyment I have ever had in my life. It's a 9-hole course, technically 10 holes, because they have another tee that only the members know about. And so we played 10. And I tell you what, after 5 hours being in Scotland, and after that round, we're sitting on the front porch of Davey is one of the members there, Davey and Sanders. Sanders is the guy that we met through reaching out ahead of time to make sure that they were okay with videoing it, because Christian does videos and stuff. And we're sitting on their front porch having a wee dram and a cup of coffee at 9:00 at night. And this is 5 hours being in Scotland. And I looked at Christian and I'm like, I told you, man, this is it. This is what the people are like. The course was great. But then we played Tane, Brora, Fortrose and Rosemarkie, Strathpeffer Spa, Cullen Links, Duff House Royal, Cousy, or Cousy as they pronounce it, Cousy Links, and Hauptmann. And out of all those, I would love to know sometime how many people, like how many of the listeners have heard of, what number of those courses have they heard of?
Right.
And the ones that you haven't heard of, talk to Jeff and have him get you on those courses, because that is where you're going to find the true Scottish golf links experience. Even the Duff House and Strathpeffer not being links courses, obviously you can't have the links experience there, but just incredible places, just absolutely incredible. And whether you do it on your own or you do it through a travel company, if you call Jeff up, the thing that so I want to tie this up. I know we're at the end of the time here, but the reason that Mike put me in touch with you is because Mike and I were just pitter-pattering, yapping back and forth by text about golf travel companies and how they always just seem to be the big courses, the Dornicks, the Olds, the Carnousties, all that, those, the Trumps and that sort of thing. And it's like, what about the 95% of the rest of the links courses in Scotland and then he's like, you need to talk to Jeff. And I looked at your website and I was like, your website's the only website that I've seen that lists Dunbar and Kilspindie and Glen, the East Links. And it's like, people need to talk to you if they really want to if you want to just check the box and go play the big ones. Sure. I mean, they can talk to you too. You're not going to turn them away. But the cool thing that you guys do is you show them that there's so much more that you're going to come back home and you're going to say words like Port Mahomet, and people are going to be like, where the hell's that at? And what is it? Is it is it a disease? You got like an itch called Port Mahomet or something? It's like, no, it's a phenomenal 9-hole links course, 10-hole links course, or Cowsey or something like that. And
well, I'm going to have to apologize to everyone that's listening or watching for having you on. And I thought you'd be more enthusiastic, but your lack of enthusiasm for links golf has really put a damper on the.
No, I apologize. I did warn you in the beginning that I don't really care about it too much. So,
well, I heard someone talk the other day. It was a movie. I don't even remember the name of the movie. And this woman was expressing what she expressed was exactly how I feel about links golf and how you do. She was talking about something different. But what she said was this feeling that I had when I experienced this thing that she was doing. My entire life was filled with the passion of how do I get that feeling back? And how do I share that feeling with others?
yes.
Right?
Yep.
And I think that's what you and I share is relative to links golf. We could talk for hours. I mean, I know we've been talking for over an hour, right?
Yep.
And it's time to wrap up, but we could talk longer because we're that passionate. And you taking Kristen and you inspiring others is a big deal because you're going to have other people that feel that step on the Strathyrum for the first time or play Prestwick or Old Musselboro or Dunbar or any of those courses and have the same exact feeling that you and I did.
Yep.
And I tell my clients that I sometimes I think I'm more excited for them than they are when they leave. And I can't wait to talk to them when they get back. Like, how was it? And
it's one of those things that I'll warn anybody listening, watching, whatever. And I tell people this. I told Christian before we went, I was like, good luck enjoying golf back in the States because it's going to be really difficult. And unfortunately, it's been really difficult for me. I look at a golf course now and I'm just like,
Well, I'll tell you what, my friends, if you're in a golf group like I am, a couple times a year, guys will go, hey, let's go down because we're so close to Florida. Let's go down to Destin, or let's go to Streamsong, or let's go to Kiowa or Hilton Head or Pinehurst. I've never gone on any of them because every moment that I have is thinking, and every dollar I have,
I get back to
I want to go back over there and play. If I'm going to pay money to play golf, I want to play those courses. So, other than Augusta National,
sure.
There's no other course in the U.S. that I want to play that badly. I mean, I want to get back to Scotland. So
I'm 100% with you, and I'm always trying to. My wife loves it that I'm always trying to figure out. Okay, when's the next trip? When can I go next? And
hey, I go every year. This year I'm going 3 times. I know some of it's work related and work pays for it, but
I'm sorry.
I mean, if I could, I know there are people who would try to get out of it.
Sure.
I'm like, bring it on. I'll go 6 times a year. I don't care.
I'll be a personal caddy for somebody. I don't care. But it's. I didn't even have a chance to touch on I touched on the people aspect of it a little bit, but the scenery, the people, the food, the music,
everything.
I fell head over heels in love with Scotland on the first day that I stepped foot in there. And
I agree.
It's incredible.
Well, Andy, I want to say thank you for investing so much time with us today. It's been fascinating to hear you talk. It's been inspiring to hear your enthusiasm, truly. You and I feel like we're kind of the Johnny Appleseeds of links golf, and maybe you so more from the Hickory golf. But anyway, thanks so much for being with us. We really do appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me on. It's been a lot of fun. Anytime I can talk Scotland and talk links golf with somebody that's just as passionate, it makes it like exponentially more enjoyable. And because I think I bore a lot of people, but
well, you didn't bore me, and I'm sure you won't for our listeners. So
Well, I hope
have a
not.
great evening. Thanks again.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jeff. Appreciate it.
Yeah, bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the Travel Rolly podcast. We really enjoyed having Andy Grow on with us today. If you want to get updates on when the next podcast is out, please hit the subscribe button and share this video if you would as well. See you next week.